Welcome to another StarSpace Chats. I'm Jeff Yenzer, Board Secretary here at StarSpace46, and as usual, your host on our semi-weekly sit-downs, where I get to kind of introduce you to someone that is a mover and shaker in the entrepreneurial community here in the state of Oklahoma. It's a pleasure today to really kind of deviate a bit from business owners and go to, the guy that kind of runs the show when it comes to this side of the state, business efforts. But I'm going to be introducing you to our Lieutenant Governor, Matt Pinnell. So this series is always meant to highlight amazing people around this community and the things they do. So I figure I'd just go from the top and work our way through. So I'll introduce Matt Pinnell, Lieutenant Governor. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I usually go into questions, but for people that don't know you, let's hear a little bit about you.
Sure. So I've been Lieutenant Governor in Oklahoma for 3 years. The first Lieutenant Governor in state history from the Tulsa area. I spend most, if not all, my time in the Oklahoma City area these days, but still live in the Tulsa area. My wife and I have got 4 kiddos in the Jinx public school system, and grew up in Oklahoma. Oral Roberts University grad. Went out to DC for a couple years. Knew I loved politics, but I loved sales and marketing, and almost went kind of into the public relations advertising field as well. And have kind of been able to combine both of my passions here as Lieutenant Governor. I didn't run for Lieutenant Governor because it was the easy thing to do. I loved kind of the platform and the swim lanes that the Lieutenant Governor frankly had. Kind of really be the sales and marketing director for the state and champion a tourism industry that I just saw that was just ripe to be promoted, drawing so many more people into the state of Oklahoma. But we are also small business owners, due in large part to my wife, which certainly we can talk about. But my wife is an entrepreneur. She invented a baby product. She is the inventor of the Binksy Baby shopping cart hammock. So little hammocks that clip into shopping carts for babies that can't sit up yet. My wife and I were packaging these up in our kitchen 5 or 6 years ago. We didn't know where the business was going. We know the highs and lows of starting a business, and now my wife operates that business in the Bixby area, ships her baby products. She has multiple baby products now, so I'm really proud of her. But was there certainly in the beginning of when she started that business. It was another big reason that we ran, and it is a we, because it's really a family decision when you run for a statewide office, and so that's the other kind of big part of my job as Lieutenant Governor is to champion small business owners across the state. That means our entrepreneurs in the state, these accelerators and incubators that we need more of them. And the state really needs to be supporting them in a financial way, if there's any incentives that we can offer, and happy to talk about any of that as well.
Oh, excellent. And we're always happy when one of those comes along, and it really allows us to light a fire under the entrepreneurial community. And here at StarSpace46, we started as a co-working space, and then it very quickly turned into more of an accelerator, just because we realized how many small business owners, freelancers that were coming in, and they were wanting to build that next product or that next software or service. And when you put that many people in the same room, they start to feed off of each other.
Yep.
And you would see, people that had been coding for 10, 20 years sitting next to somebody that had just started, and they were running into problems, and the ability to just turn to your left and talk to somebody and work within an environment where it's not this idea that it's a bunch of sharks that are going to undercut each other, but rather if the entrepreneurial space and if small business is growing in Oklahoma, then that's a good thing. So I've always loved the state that it tries not to be that place that you find sometimes stereotypically on the coasts, where it's all of this dog eat dog. Whereas here it's you. If I help you, you can probably at least validate what we do together. And if we're both validating that, then it's going to build up that idea that maybe we can go ahead and use a fractionalized business model or a freelancer as opposed to hiring an employee that maybe we didn't need. And the power in that and the ability to pivot as a small business would need to be able to do just allows them to break out of that, 5-year or less cycle where they churn and burn, and they can actually turn into a great business in, honestly, one of the easiest states to start a business that I can ever see.
Well, and you nailed it. I mean, when we can get people to the state of Oklahoma, we actually sell really well. And entrepreneurs see this. They see that it's not not only is it not dog eat dog, but you can make a difference in Oklahoma City, across, it doesn't matter what county you're in, across our 77 counties, but you can make a difference in communities in Oklahoma really day one. You're not up to bat next, you're up to bat right now, our next generations, young or old, when it comes to our entrepreneurs. And you see that in this co-working space. That's kind of a new normal, I think, too, in America. But now, because of the valuations of companies on the coasts, because they're so overvalued, you now have a rise of the rest type of climate. Steve Case really, used that, tagged that great book, great bus tour that he was on across the country. But he's right that there's just as many smart people in the middle of America with just as good of ideas. And we need to go invest in those businesses too, not just businesses on the coasts. And now you've got entrepreneurs and remote workers that can work anywhere in America. Why not Oklahoma City? I mean, it's one of the premier cities in America today. And I firmly believe Oklahoma is kind of that next state. It'll due in large part to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the way that Oklahoma City and Tulsa have gone back and forth and been able to work in tandem together versus, decades past where it was us or them,
right.
And really beginning to realize that if they think about things in a statewide mentality instead of trying to bring things to this city or that city, then it's really going to get people to the point that, what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to have money coming in from the coasts, buying properties and making it beautiful out in rural Oklahoma. And thus, I mean, I grew up out in Custer City, Oklahoma. So that's where my family's from, just north of Weatherford. So it truly is. What's the worst that could happen? There's money and some form of security out to those farming communities.
Yes.
How horrible is that?
Right. Yeah. No, it's very, we do have 77 counties and we've got to support them all. But I hope that there's Oklahoma City, Tulsa is kind of the next Dallas, Fort Worth in a lot of ways. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of investment capital that is helping across 77 counties, not just in 2 counties. And that's how, I mean, that investment community in Texas, that is what's being invested in a lot of these other areas across the state of Texas as well. So it does help everybody. It does.
It truly does. And seeing how things have grown in such a way that is what was traditionally for the last 60 years. Well, if it's not oil and gas, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
And truly realizing that, yes, oil and gas has a part in that, but there's so many other things. I mean, our biomed and what we've been able to see coming into and out of this pandemic, our technologists that are coming in that, again, to your point, can work from wherever. So why live on a coast when you could live here? The internet is honestly better here because we're not so saturated with people.
Right.
So you're able to hit all of your meetings, and then we're able to fly out of either airport and be able to get to those meetings if we need to. So it's a more global community, but now America can start functioning as more of a nationwide effort.
And we're getting more diversified by the day. Oklahoma
Absolutely.
is. I mean, I want oil and gas, I do, but the oil and gas industry wants a more diversified economy too. You go to Dallas today, it doesn't look like an oil town, anymore. So we want to make sure that we continue to get more diversified. Oklahoma City it truly is a modern frontier there. Tulsa's getting more developed as well, not just oil and gas. And so that's going to be very important for us growing as a state. Aerospace industry, you mentioned biomed, cybersecurity. There's a lot of areas, growth potential in our state when it comes to high paying jobs that we can go after. Companies not just looking to relocate, but at homegrown businesses as well that are going to be birthed right there at a lot of the co-working space that we have across the state now.
Yeah, and we get more and more of them every day. And, we have probably 8 or 9 here in the OKC area. And everybody always asks, it's like, well, I mean, what happens? Who's the best? Who does this? Who does that? We don't care. We're all just literally competing with people's homes. coming out of this pandemic. We were saying it before the pandemic started, and then it only became that much more true. That we're only competing with people's homes. That's our competition. We're not competing with each other.
Right.
There's more than enough people that would burst the seams of every single one of the co-working spaces as they stand today. So really, we just want people to begin to think that, one, you can start a small business easier than you ever have been able to.
Yes.
When you're not producing a product, and I mean, you've seen this from having to produce something with, you and your wife's effort. If you're not producing a product, you don't have overhead. So
Right.
you were literally just trying to grow that small business to a point where you were making money for somebody else.
Yeah.
And now that's the closest thing I always tell people to what the American dream really is, a lifestyle business. If you were truly thinking about it, when people were trying to think up what the frontier would look like back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
it, man.
It was.
No, it is. That's why I love that new brand in Oklahoma City, the Modern Frontier.
Mhm.
It still is for dreamers, for Oklahoma's kind of the place for second and third chances too.
Yep.
And I love that about Oklahomans, that Oklahoma standard that we have here as well. Taking care of our neighbors, it's not dog eat dog.
Mhm.
You roll all that up, there is something special in that, in that formula. And it's something I think is going to bode very well for Oklahoma over the next 10 years, leading up to that next census that we'll have 10 years from now, when we count everybody again. I hope we don't have 3.9 million people still. We just counted everybody. That's how many people we have. So that's a pretty good, pretty good metric for us, is how many people are we going to have 10 years from now? And we will not have more than 3.9 if we don't invest in our next generations, in these entrepreneurs that have these dreams, have these ideas. If there's nowhere for those ideas to flourish, then unfortunately they're going to go to other states. And we just can't afford that. We've got to be tenacious about keeping those entrepreneurs in our cities in Oklahoma. And I hope, again, through like a Starship 46, like a 36 degrees north in Tulsa, and everything in between, it's certainly a big piece of the strategy of keeping that local grown talent in Oklahoma. And then, yes, creating the quality of life that we have to have in communities that will be competitive cities.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of it also comes down to inclusivity. We are getting to a point in our world that if people don't feel welcome, then they will find another place.
That's right.
And we have experienced so much brain drain in this state just because it had a reputation for not wanting to push forward in those ways and wanting to, hold back to truths that were either valid or fallacies, but they were still truths nonetheless. Yep. And if we can make this state something that people say, they are making strides. Nobody's perfect. You have to have that grace for other people, but you have to begin to become more inclusive so that you are bringing people in instead of telling people that maybe they do better someplace else.
Right. No, I mean, listen, our new mark, our new logo points to that diversity. I mean, that's why it's as colorful as it is, because it's showing that diversity in our landscape. But it also leads us to have the conversation. Hey, listen, Oklahoma is actually a very diverse state when it comes to our people as well. And I'm not talking just about our 39 sovereign nations. That is a big part of it, yes. But we have thriving Asian, African-American communities, Korean communities. Obviously, yes, rural Oklahoma as well, that rural-urban mix that we have in Oklahoma. But we never talk about it. We should talk about it. Obviously, the Race Massacre Centennial this year gives us a good a reason, certainly, to talk about righting that wrong, but also learning from it. So that thriving African-American community down in Greenwood, Black Wall Street, let's talk about these things, because it is true. These next generations are going to want to live in those melting pots. And unfortunately, the brand in Oklahoma for far too long is that, well, this is the Dust Bowl. We're not diverse. We're ugly. We're flat. It's just the opposite. But we've just kind of accepted that Oklahoma is okay, and we're just okay with being okay.
Right.
And we've unfortunately been defined as that. And so, we wanted to make sure that we pushed the envelope a little bit when it came to our branding, that we're not that, but we're going to have to be even more aggressive, telling people and proving to people that we're not that, for really those generations to give a notice to Oklahoma.
Absolutely. And it truly comes down to, we could say it all day long. We've got to show it, and we
That's
have
right.
to, through those actions. And I think that, to your point, when you're looking at righting past wrongs and admitting to things, we're about the same age. We
Yep.
probably grew up under the same sort of tutelage in schools. It was never, what happened in Tulsa was never called a massacre. Not
Never.
once when I was going through school. It was always this idea that it was violence, but it was two-sided violence, and
Yep.
it was never the actual history what happened there.
Yep.
And to be able to own up to that, and truly, it's thinking about things holistically like a person. If you have wronged people in the past, you can talk about how great you are now. You can try to do a million things, but until you bring up those skeletons in the closet and you talk about them openly and hold yourself accountable and have remorse for those sorts of things, that's when you start to be able to be a catalyst for change and people believe what you're saying.
Yeah, no, it's true. Catalyst for change. I mean, that is a powerful statement. And again, Oklahoma can and should be that. I mean,
Right.
there really isn't another state that can match the heritage and the history of Oklahoma. And it's something we need to lean into and talk about. We shouldn't be scared of it. Shouldn't be, I grew up 5 minutes from Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
Went to Lee Elementary School and never learned about it. Went to Wilson Middle School, never learned about it. Went to high school, Metro Christian, never learned about it. So thankfully it's in our textbooks today. Okay. Yeah. So give credit where credit's due. But let's make sure that we teach it the right way. We learn from it. And the cool thing about, Black Wall Street too, I mean, it burned down, rebuilt, they kept getting knocked down there, and guess what? Mm-hmm. They kept rising up again. Yep. Entrepreneurship could not be defeated there. And so now you have, this thriving African-American community in Greenwood. The entrepreneurs are returning to that district. That's mm-hmm. great. We need to make sure that we do that across the state of Oklahoma. I love what's going on in Oklahoma City as well. And so, but we need to build on it, talk more about it, because as we've talked about, the world that we're entering into now post-COVID is a completely different world. You have businesses, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies saying you can live anywhere, you can go anywhere. And so now all of these cities are competing for that talent of people that can live anywhere. And once you start building a workforce like that, then a Tesla, when the next Tesla comes, they'll look at Tulsa, Oklahoma City, heck, Weatherford, Enid, these other towns across Oklahoma, and say, hey, guess what? They have a workforce now. It's a diverse workforce. Why not these towns? Why not Oklahoma? We're on short lists already. We got to get off short lists and actually start delivering on some of these deals now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's, it trickles down to so many different things. And it's like a spider web of things that we have to pay attention to, whether it be education or whatever, that will truly get people to understand. And I think that why not Oklahoma is that mentality of you've got everything here.
Yeah.
There's the old adage, there's nothing in between us and success other than air and excuses.
Yes.
That's it. So like make it happen.
Core services. I mean, I would mention that. I mean, because I am lieutenant governor and
Sure.
and I'm a politician and I'm at that state capitol. I do want the folks watching this to really hear from me, my heart on. I get it. Core services, public education, roads and bridges, healthcare system, in rural and urban Oklahoma is extremely important. And then we've got to do the basics well first. And that does mean public education, and which includes higher education as well, because we've lost some deals based upon research facilities that maybe another university in another state had versus ours. And the only difference is again, the investment that we are not making sometimes in those higher education facilities. So we realize, we know we've got to do better there. I like what we've done, some of the steps we've taken over the last couple of years of teacher pay raises, of addressing class sizes. I want public education to continue to be innovative as well. I'm not saying there doesn't need to be innovation there. We don't do healthcare the same way we did 100 years ago. We shouldn't do public education the same way we did 100 years ago either. And so as healthcare innovates, we need to be making sure we're innovating in education too. But that does mean quality teachers getting a good wage and making sure they don't have 35 kids in their class, and while having to teach a third grade reading test and play mental health expert. And unfortunately, right now, our public school teachers are having to do that. They're having to play too many roles, and that means we're not investing enough that we should inside that public education system. That helps build a city. Good quality public education brings companies that pay good wages. So I know that we're working on that at the legislative level, as well as public infrastructure as well, better rail, better bike trails. I mean, those type of things really do matter to the next generation when they're looking at a community that they're going to move to.
Absolutely. And I tell my clients as a personnel operations consultant all the time, spend money now to save money later.
Yes.
If you're saving money, then you're making money.
Yes.
Plain and simple.
That's right.
And I think that that's a perfect place to look at it from, is just that money has to be invested. And I think that that is where Oklahoma has slacked for a few decades of just, hey, everything has worked. If it's not broke, why fix it?
Yes.
But no one was noticing, kind of like the foundation for a home. You don't notice until stuff starts to kind of, you see the cracks in the walls, and we're now seeing them, and we're seeing the uneven parts. And that's what we've gotten ourselves to.
Yeah.
So how do we get back in there? How do we fix it up? And how do we make it better? So I'm glad that those initiatives are being talked about, and we're not just trying to rely on what has worked for the last, 40 years that you and I have been on the planet, and the 40 before that.
That's right. And can't rely solely upon our oil and gas industry anymore.
Right.
I mean, we just can. And so, if we do that, then we'll run out of money in state government sometimes when the price of oil is as bad as it was a few years ago. It's bouncing back a little bit, but it gives us the opportunity now to be really forward thinking. What are the industries that are growing? And if they're growing that way, then maybe we should be looking at, battery manufacturing companies. If every auto manufacturing company is going that direction, right? Aerospace, drones, cybersecurity. If we keep looking and making sure that the investment is in those areas, then we'll start delivering on more of those companies that are looking to relocate in those industries.
Exactly. And just like we've done with oil and gas, if you start to value those sorts of industries as much as we have oil and gas, then you start bringing up these children with the idea, even if they're out in rural Oklahoma, that they can sit down at a computer and code. They don't have to worry about, being a roustabout and then trying to be a pumper and then trying to move their way up just because they didn't have access to the best education due to their socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
Anybody with a computer and an internet connection, you can get that kid has an aptitude, again,
learn how to code,
an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and then, we're also working on making sure that internet access, broadband access, those of us in urban areas don't, we take it for granted.
Right.
We have 77 counties, a lot of rural areas where just quality internet access is not there, which is unacceptable. It's unacceptable to not be providing rural broadband. And so a lot of states are dealing with this same issue. We saw this during COVID, how important it was to make sure that we had rural broadband service. So we're working on that. There'll be further investments with our COVID relief dollars that we're going to be getting to Oklahoma. Make sure we're investing there because, an entrepreneur in Custer County, Oklahoma, if they do not have access to quality internet and again, healthcare, education, roads and bridges, then guess what? They're going to leave. They're going to leave. And so we want to give them every excuse to be able to stay right here in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure. Exactly. It's just taking away those excuses, because if you do it, then why not stay here and make your $100,000 here a year is going to go a lot farther than $100,000 in a lot of places in the world.
Yep.
So if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere is what
That's
I try to tell people. And places like StarSpace46, I mean, what we're trying to do with our community and by building the other communities around our both Oklahoma City and Tulsa and also all the areas in between and outward, it's just getting people to try to think on that level. So with that in mind, I mean, what's something that these communities can do to help you? Usually this is a business owner question, but what can they do to help you in your initiatives?
Yeah, I keep filling up your co-working space. First off,
okay.
The branding, all the advertising that you all do, I follow it. It's great. because here, what I've noticed is high school, college kids, kids graduating from college and don't know what they want to do next. They're going to see advertising from you all. They're going to see advertising because, again, you got to reach kids and young adults where they're at. And so what you all are doing is telling that next generation that, hey, guess what? My city or my state actually cares about me and wants to invest in me. And it may be the one thing that keeps them inside the city of Oklahoma City. Okay, hey, listen, I'm going to go down to this co-working space. I don't know what I want to do with my life yet. I've got a couple ideas. What do? They sit in a chair somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Then they meet somebody right next to them, where they develop a relationship, and they may start a business a year from now.
Right.
That is huge. And so, and again, I'm not just saying this. Just keep doing what you're doing, because if you all keep doing what you're doing, on top of what I hope, what I'm trying to do as Lieutenant Governor, casting that vision of small business growth and entrepreneurship, then we're going to be casting that same vision for the state of Oklahoma. Without a StarSpace46, without the other, again, co-working space and accelerators and incubators that we have in the state, we can't do it all inside state government. Don't let us try either. Right? We need the private sector and nonprofits as well to be helping us in that effort. So that public-private partnership is huge for us. And so, again, I'm very thankful that you guys are dedicated to it through COVID. And now I hope, because you guys are already pretty forward-thinking, that there's going to be a whole lot more people thinking this way post-COVID.
Sure.
That may need a job, that lost a job during COVID, that their office may now let them work remotely permanently, and they may need to come down and operate out of your space. So I just think the sky's the limit for that business model, and I hope it means more entrepreneurs and small business owners and just young Oklahomans staying in Oklahoma and not going to Dallas.
Right.
Because that's just what's happened for the last couple decades, and we've got to stop that brain drain. It's not going to happen without StarSpace46 and other people like you.
I do appreciate it. Well, I'm not going to take up all your time, but it has absolutely been a pleasure. And I know everybody at the StarSpace46 community has kind of at least taken something out of this that hopefully will look like a way forward and at least some support at the state level. So we do appreciate that.
Well, again, thank you to StarSpace46. I really appreciate everything you guys do. You can follow me, on social media. But to StarSpace and to your staff, I'm sure it's a huge staff, right?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. We've got nothing but people, wall-to-wall assistants. My assistants have assistants.
Yes.
No, it's bootstrapped. It's just us, please.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate everything you guys do. And if we can ever do anything, be more helpful, legislation. Mm-hmm. My doors are always open to StarSpace and you all. But keep that in mind too. If there's ever anything that we can do from a legislative perspective, we always love those type of partnerships and to be making sure that we're pursuing the kind of legislation that is also demonstrating to the next generation that we want you guys in this state.
Right. And all are welcome. I think that if we could
That's right.
If we could truly bridge on that, then that's the next step of just getting people to realize that the middle of America is a nice place to be in.
Yeah, no, it's no doubt about it. No doubt.
All right, Matt, it's been a pleasure. Take care of yourself, okay?
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Be safe. And as we just talked about, that was Matt Pinnell, Lieutenant Governor here at Oklahoma, in the state of Oklahoma, coming out of Oklahoma City and, being born and raised out in Tulsa. So a true person that has been here since the beginning of his life and will probably be here for a long time as well, kind of like me. But thank you for joining us for StarSpace Chats. Please share this with your friends. Check out social media. You can go to our landing page at starspace46.com. You can also schedule a tour here at our facility. We are upholding a a now expired mask mandate, but if you feel that you are immunocompromised, then please do mask up. Come visit us. All of our staff have been vaccinated, so we would like to make sure that you understand that we are trying to take your health and well-being into our true front of mind. You might be able to find that perfect office space, which would be amazing. In the meantime, go ahead and hit the like button, share with people that you love or hate, just share it around. Drop a comment if you'd like, and hit the little bell if you want to be notified whenever these sorts of things pop up. And you can see opportunities for me to talk to people here and around the state. As a shameless plug, always, you can grab some merchandise at merch46.com. And we also have free co-working every single Wednesday. And it is a place to see and be seen as we begin to reintegrate and get around people again. And it does feel so good. Anyway, it is always my pleasure to introduce all of you to somebody that maybe you didn't know a lot about. And until next time, be safe, everyone.